it's a privilege to be able uh, to help inform the work that you do, because it's not work that I do. But when there were some of you who were on that class that I gave
Yes.
the last time, so not everybody was, but so, I said, this is not work that I do, but because the learning is accessible, so we're going to do it together, and then you'll, and then I would like to hear, I would be very interested to hear in our next sessions, because I think we're going to have a couple, Bezrat Hashem, how it is informing the work that you do. I think it's very important, because we'll see the Maavar book says that for all of the physical things that are done for the honor of the niftar, one of the things that's most important, which is exactly why I think we're having this kind of a class, is about the thoughts that you have and the feelings that you're feeling while you're working with the niftar. And so whatever you learn that's going to help to whatever you learn that's going to help to deepen your respect for everything that you do and your understanding of everything that you do. So Adarabba, it's only with Tovas HaNes. So okay, so I sent to Alyssa the material that we'll be looking at I broke it down into 3 separate sessions. We'll see how we do. And the Maavar book, first of all, is a Kabbalistic Musar text, basically. I mean, that's really what it is. And it's around the time of the Arizal. And the most of the book is not about practices surrounding Tahara. There's only a fairly limited section that's about the Tahara. There's a lot about preparation. What does it mean to live in this world, preparation for leaving this world, and in general, a kind of deep Kabbalistic Musar. So this is a sefer that I feel very connected with, aside from because it's just powerful and beautiful, but my father, Zichron Livracha, and I would learn this in preparation for his passing, before he passed away. This was a work that when he no longer had focus, to be able to learn the works that he loved to learn, and he couldn't see that well, and he liked me to sit with him and learn with him. One day, we were sitting down to learn together, and I said, what would you like me to learn with you? And he said, I want to do tshuva. And I said, should we start the Maavar book? And he said, yes, it's time. This was several months before he passed away. So we had an opportunity to learn through parts of it. Okay, so I'm gonna share. I think I'm gonna share my screen with you. Would you? I think that would be better. Even though I sent the material, sometimes it's good to be able to see each other. To have the little boxes up. But I think that in this case, we're going to share our screen so we can be in the text together. Okay. 1 second. I need screen sharing enabled for me, Alyssa. Please. I can't hear you.
I made you a co-host.
Oh, excellent. Okay, great. So here, let me set this up a little bit better so we can see. Can everybody see the text? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, because I'm not assuming anybody has familiarity with being able to, with learning inside in the Hebrew. And in any case, even someone who's quite capable with the Hebrew, they may have a hard time with a text like this because it's kind of it's sort of a specialized study. So the Maavar book is.
You want me to go into how can I do it so that I don't bother you?
So the Maavar book is one thing to be aware of. It's not linear in its treatment of the subjects at hand. So like the Seder Tahara has all of it's got very, very clear steps and very different things that you do along the way of each of these steps. It's very, very organized. The Maavar book is not like that. Now, what's interesting is that almost everything that you do in the Seder Tahara is from the Maavar book. Like it's basically all from here. So at the beginning, there's a kind of it's laid out. Maybe I'll send it to you in the original format. the whole Seder Tahara and all of the psukim and everything, it's laid out, all of those verses and practices and what to do here and what to do there. That's laid out linearly. But when it comes to explaining it, so it's piecemeal, it's all over the place in all of these discourse, like these sort of essays on different subjects. So pulling it together, here I can show you just from my own notes, right? So here from my own notes, it's like, you see the pages, it's like 124, 237, and then to 270, and back and forth and back and forth. I rearrange them for our purposes. I rearrange them sort of in a more, like a logical flow to follow the course of the Tahara. But in actual fact, you're sort of moving around a bit in the book because it's not really in order. So for today, we're really going to focus on Kavod HaMeis and burial, Tahara, the name itself, who does it ideally, and so on. And we'll see how far we get. And I think we only scheduled for 3 sessions. So provided that we're able to do what we can. The second set of sources is, it talks about the cleaning and the washing. And the last is Tahara and the dressing. Is the Tahara itself, the Teskabin, the large vessels of water, and the dressing. So that's the general direction we're going to be taking. We'll see, how we move through. Okay. V'lios. Now, what's more comfortable for people, Ashkenazic pronunciation or a Sephardic Havara? That's the question. Ashkenazic?
Sephardi for me, but I can go with the Ashkenazi if that's.
Like you can manage? Okay, I'm, to me, it doesn't matter. I'll just have to pick
Whatever
one.
you want.
Yeah, whatever you want, Yehudis.
Okay. So, okay. V'liot ki haneshama makeret b'chod haguf. It being the case that the soul recognizes the covet of the body. Now that's very interesting. What does it mean that the soul recognizes the covet of the body? Meaning the soul is very cognizant while we're in our bodies now, right? While the soul is in the body while we live, of the way in which the body is being treated. It's cognizant of its being taken care of in a respectful way. And it's just as true that it is sensitive to, the soul is sensitive to the disgracing of the body while we're alive, and bizyono achar moto, and also after death. So in this way, we'll be able to know and understand. So it's actually a 2-part when you're working with what's the word that we should use? With the dead, with the niftar, with the nifteres. What is everybody used to use? What term is everybody used to using?
Mace.
Mace. Now we're going to see that the word mace, he's going to teach us some very deep sodos, a very deep secret about the word mace also. And there's nothing wrong or gas or vulgar about using the word mace. So I just didn't want to use a word that people will necessarily might feel uncomfortable with, but it's actually a very holy word, and it has very deep significance, this word mace. And doing an act of kindness, which is like this, the ultimate act of kindness with the body, is also a chesed neshama, and for all of its powers. Now, when he says all of its kochos, meaning all of its qualities, the soul has different qualities and attributes to it, and the body has different parts and limbs and organs to it, right? And they parallel each other. So the proper care and the proper treatment of all of the body parts of the mace are actually, in turn, you are being mechabed, you are giving a lot of respect to the corresponding spiritual parts and sub-elements and sub-degrees of the soul that are manifest or that parallel each of those body parts. Each one of them has a different place in kavod. Now, when it says a different place in kavod, it means that, when the washing is done, how is it done? In what order? Everybody knows, right? You go from bottom up, you go from arms in, where do you go? Top down, right? Top down, head down. Why? Because it's called kifi makom kvodo, that the orderly procession of the preparation of the body is in accordance with the place of kavod of all of the place in it's a kind of spiritual precedence of all of the parts of the body and the distinct aspects of the soul. Al yidei bnei adam hachayim. And who has to do this work? It's living people who have to do this. Shehem balei guf uneshama tahora b'socham. You're a living person. You come in to do this work with the body, with the mace. And that person is now in the state of splitting, right? That the soul is no longer fully inhabiting the body. There's a trace. There is actually a trace, but the soul is no longer encapsulated in the body. It's somewhat hovering until the burial. It's there. It has a presence, but it's not enlivening the body anymore. And you come in with your body and soul together, right? You're still in the world of the living, able to be mechabed both aspects of the person because you still have both of your aspects together, functioning together. It's powerful to come into the room, the living person, right? The Adam Chai, Shehem Balei Guf Uneshama Tahora B'Socham. You come in with your holy soul, inhabiting your holy body, coming in to do this work. This is a very, very great act of kavod and respect and love for the person who's gone. Ve'en lizalzil b'chvod shum meis, b'kol shekein b'talmid chacham. And of course, it's very important not to disregard any mace, but it's all the more so a Talmid Chacham. Now, why replacing? We're going to see the Maavar Yabok puts quite a bit of emphasis on practices, enhanced practices for Talmid Chacham. That Torah scholars are to be treated with even more respect. And the truth is, have you learned that you're supposed to treat anybody with any respect different from anyone else based on who they were in life?
No, Adrabah, we were told specifically that, hi, Boker Tov,
No,
we were supposed to treat everybody with the utmost respect, even a person who we don't know, who was like found that's giving a free burial type of thing. That's just like someone who has nobody should be treated even equally, if not more so than the tzaddik.
Okay, so now watch. So that's called Ein Lizalzel B'Chvod Shum Meis. That's what you're taught in the Chevra Kadisha, that everybody is to be treated with utmost respect. That's true. He said that. But in actual practice, now this is not necessarily the custom, but in actual practice, he recommended that certain additional tefillot or certain additional prayers be said for Talmidei Chachamim. And really what it has to do with is, this is from a Kabbalistic point of view, and that's why it's not necessarily practice. It's not necessarily something that is done in Chevra Kadisha, where it's about like giving a measure of respect, an extra measure of respect to the person who really made himself a vessel into being a Merkava the Shechina, like his body was really an obedient servant of serving his soul in his lifetime. That's what he means by a Talmid Chacham. It's not about how many pages of Gemara he learned or something like that. It's about, has this person really devoted all of the parts of his body or her body to the service of Hashem in an extraordinary way. So he makes a distinction, but in actual fact, as far as I know, and you're telling me what I thought was true, you don't make a distinction actually when doing any tahara, but he does bring this up. And well, we'll see further. Now, some of the things that he mentions here are like not necessarily so relevant, but he talks about afterwards how it says in Sefer Hasidim, you don't make a wedding in a room where someone died within a month, in the last month. The person passed away in the room, so you don't make a wedding in that room. And he brings this here to give us the idea that what does it mean to not be mezalza, like not to disgrace the dead. So on the one hand, we understand that it means to treat the body with respect. And we're going to see it means also what you talk about, not to speak divrei chol, not to speak things that are just mundane things in a mundane conversation, not to joke around, chas v'shalom, like a certain gravitas about the work that's being done. But beyond that, there's a different type of zilzul, which sort of has to do with the fact that in the place where a person passed away, we've become so used to the fact that people often pass away in the hospital. What was normal, the normal was that people tended to pass away in their home, right? That was actually what happened, for almost anybody, unless there was some accident, chas v'shalom, but people tended to die at home. And so And so that actually has an impact on some of the customs surrounding Shiva. Like so a lot of the practices that we do during Shiva are really based on the premise that the person passed away in the house. The keeping of a minyan going and covering the mirrors and so on. Like this, there are all different kinds of practices. They are basically they assume that people pass away at home. And so when he talks about not using the room for this other purpose, because the idea is that there's until the Shloshim passes, there's still some trace of the presence of the nifter there. And to make a celebration in the place where he left his body behind is painful. It's painful to him. So there's a kind of sensitivity about that I wasn't necessarily going to talk about, but see. And so we'll move down. Now, there's a lot here that has to do with, not yet to the Tahara itself, but more about general understanding about the Halvaya, the funeral, and so on. But because I think that there's concepts here that are very, very important, so I think I'm going to take it. I chose little bits and pieces here and there. I hope that you are okay with that. The mamarim are very, very long, and they have a lot of, it's intermingled. The material that I feel is going to be most relevant for everybody is not necessarily like, back to back. So the Maavar book first goes through talking about why we call Halvayat Hamet, it's the same livui, this language of the funeral or accompanying the dead or seeing them out, as the same livia as taking guests out, right? When guests leave the house, that they get accompanied out, and that's also a mitzvah. To be melaveh, to when someone comes to my home, that I walk them for 4 cubits out of my house and so on, even though the truth is, according to the halacha, I'm really supposed to take them all the way. But then who'll walk you back? So that's always like, that's the thing, like little girls, when we had friends on the block when we were kids, you walk her home, and then she's like, I'll walk you back. And then you keep going back and forth. And when does it end? But what's the distinction? What's the common thread, this accompanying? So aside from the obvious, I mean, it's like you are accompanying. Yes, definitely. You are with the mace. We are taking him to his final resting place, or her to her final resting place, preparing her or him for that. But here the Maavar book says something powerful. It says V'adam hachai. You see down here where it's marked. V'adam hachai shu b'madregat emet. The living person is madrigat emet. A living human, a living person is called the quality of emes, truth. And you say, why is the living person the quality of truth? Like, not everybody is so truthful, not everybody's so honest necessarily. What does that mean? So emes really is different than what we think. When he's speaking from the Kabbalistic perspective, he means that emes is called the middle quality. It's the balanced quality in the middle. So it means that a human being who's alive, we exist at this place of balance where our spiritual self and our physical self are in a state of unified harmony. They're synthesized and in a state of unity. And that's called emes. That's called truth. And it means the middle. It's the middle line. Like you have this spiritual self and you have this physical self, and you join them together, and this unity is called emes, this harmony. Ve'imo shechina b'koach chelkei nishmasa mi'achada im doda. And the Shekhinah is with us because of the parts of our soul that is always in a state of unity with its source. So Hashem's presence is always unified with us because our soul emerges from Hashem. Hashem is always with us. והשכינה רודפת אחרי הצדיק ליהנות מהשפעת התפארת המשפיע על נשמתו בעוסקו בתורה בפרט ובשאר מצוות בכלל. And so the Shekhinah HaKdosha, Hashem's presence, is always sort of like chasing after us when we're doing mitzvot, when we're learning Torah. It always wants to be with us and dwell with us. And that's called Hashpas HaTiferes. That's called the Tiferes. That's the quality of Tiferes. It's the beauty and the harmony of being an integrated soul and body, with the soul shining through the body and enlivening it. And so the source from which that soul emerged always wants to accompany us and come with us. It chases after us, especially while we're studying Torah, and while we're doing mitzvot. Now, at the time of the accompanying of the mace, shuvadai orach hanotel lalun b'makom menuchaso, gorim l'shchina sheyitzedek shetilech lefanav. So it's like, what happens when we go? You bring yourself, because this is kind of a continuation of what we were saying before. You're going to prepare the mace for burial, and so you're coming with yourself, and you're the emes. You come in, the Isha Chai, the Isha Chaya, the living person, the living human being, comes with your fully integrated body and soul, and you bring the Shekhinah with you. That's what you're bringing there. And so as we do our accompanying of the mace and preparation of the mace for burial, so the Shekhinah also is going before this person, paves the way for this person, while the person's soul is heading off in its direction on its way. And the Shekhinah cries out, and the reason we wanted to share with you, because it's very, very beautiful. You come in with your good intentions and your good desires to do the mitzvah of Chesed Shel Emes. Isn't it called Chesed Shel Emes? You're the Emes. Chesed Shel Emes is the chesed that the Emes can do for the mace. You understand? Emes, Aleph Mem Taf, Emes is Aleph and mace. It's the Chesed Shel Emes. It's the truth, which is the ultimate truth, is that Hashem's, a bit of God can come and become manifest and express itself through a human body. This is the biggest integration and the biggest harmony that exists. It's nothing higher than this. There's no higher truth. Someone has a question. I see that the chat is beeping. Okay. So I'm not so good with the chat, because then I wind up having to open it because mine is not open.
I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, very good.
Yehuda,
So
could you just say that again about Chesed
okay,
Shel?
so you're see, we're used to thinking of Chesed Shel Emes, that's like, because the person who passed away can't pay you back. We have all of these understandings. It's like the ultimate act of kindness, because it's done without any thought of recompense, correct? But Chesed Shel Emes, the Maavar Yabok is telling us, no, it's the Chesed that's done by Emes, the Chesed Shel Emes. You're the Emes. You, the person who comes to help, the person who's from the Chevra Kadisha. You are the embodiment of Emes, because Emes means, a little Kabbalistic stuff here, 1 second. Okay, so we have to the right-hand side, that's called the side that is associated with loving kindness, with chesed, yes? And then we have on the other side, on the left-hand side, we call, this is the forces of judgment and strength and self-restraint, and that's called Gvura. And in the middle place, that quality is called Tiferes. We're still finishing out Sphira, so we have all of our iterations of Tiferes. So Tiferes is the third one. It's in the middle. It's a place of balance. And the sages taught us Tiferes is the quality of Emes. It means to be in the place of harmony, integration. This is the highest form of Emes that there is. Now, because you're a human being who still has, Baruch Hashem, your soul is active in your body, and you're a fully integrated body and soul, you are representative of the life vitality, and that's the middle of the torso, that's where your vital organs are. That life vitality of Emes, and you bring it, that's the Chesed Shel Emes, you're bringing yourself to do this act of great kindness for the person who's passed away. And here, so Omeret Lachitzonim, and you're bringing with you this incredible force, because all the while that your soul is integrated with your body, the Shekhinah Kedosha is drawn after you. The Shekhinah Kedosha always wants to be with you, especially when you're doing a mitzvah. And so you come, and what you're doing is you're bringing the Shekhinah to the nifter, to the maze. And then the Shekhinah is milava the nifter's soul off into the place where it needs to go. She accompanies the soul. You're only there for the transition. You're not there to accompany the soul. You're there to make the preparation that the body will go into the ground to be respectfully buried. and the soul has to depart and go on its way. And everyone who works for the holy Chevra, the Chevra Kadisha, is at the transition point when the body is being prepared for its direction and the soul is making ready to leave to go in its direction. So you walk in the room and you bring with you the Shechina Kedosha. And then the Shechina Kedosha goes on the journey with that person's soul. It's first steps of the journey. And it says, Solu, 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 Panu Derech, Harimu Michshol. This is actually from the Navi, from Yeshayahu. Clear the way, pave the way, clear the way, and take off all the obstacles, so that Makom L'Diokan Elyon, that this person's soul, which is a small view of Chelek Elokam Mimal, it's the Shechina Kedosh, it's the godly spark itself is going back to its place. V'od ki ata mitatzem koach osei dvaro shel makom ba'olam hazeh. Okay, this I'm not going to go into with you. Let's see. It's just so beautiful, the language he uses here. And imagine as you're preparing the person, and it's later on when the burial actually takes place, when the funeral takes place, is that there's not 30 people there, there's not 50 people there, there's not 150 people there, or 1,000 people there. There's Shishimi Bro, there's 600,000 root souls of the Jewish people are there. Imagine it. Like you're not because they are getting their own back, meaning it's a single spark that emerged into this body from the root souls, the 600,000 original root souls of the Jewish people. And so the entirety of Knesset Yisrael on the spiritual plane is like waiting to gather this soul back in. So those moments of the preparation, that time that you're working in the preparation, is really like you're preparing the mace for the separation. But it's two very, very long journeys. You know, the long journeys of a return to Dioknei Neshamos. The more aware you are of the holiness of the work that you do, and the fact that the soul is being rejoined to its source in all of the Shoshei Neshamos of the Jewish people, then all the more so does it bring light and illumination to the soul of the person who's passed away. Let's see. We'll go on. Now,
Sorry, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So,
and if I'm using any terminology or ideas that you're not familiar with, stop me. Okay? If I say something that it's not clear, so stop me. Because I don't know what people know and don't know.
it sounds like you're saying that by us coming in, we bring the Shekhinah to this place, to this room.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what happened? The person passed away, correct? Okay. Now the person passed away, and different people leave the world in different ways. I'm not talking about physical causes of death. I'm talking about the way in which the neshama leaves the body. So the sages speak about this as in several different ways. They say that the Malach HaMavis can come with a chalaf. The Malach HaMavis can come with a shoichet's knife. And the Malach HaMavis can come with but there's another idea that the Shechina Kedosha comes for the person. It says everybody die by the hand of the Malach HaMavis. And the answer is no, not everybody does. Some people are merit to leave the body, that the soul separates from the body with incredible Gishuv Hadas, with very, very great clarity and in great tshuva. And so the leaving of the body is quite different. And the way the sages spoke about this, they used a very powerful metaphor. They said that there are those who leave the body like a thorn that's being, I'm sure you're all familiar with this one, like a thorn that's being drawn through cotton wool, like a ball of cotton wool. And there are those who leave like an eyelash out of the milk. And you know, if there's you put your finger down and it adheres to your finger, you just pick it up. You don't have to even sift it out. It's just, the hair just adheres to your finger. You just pull it right out. It's only on Shabbos though. So not that way. So the eyelash out of milk means like effortlessly, right? Effortlessly. Now and physically, we know that there are very, very different. There's like the picture. There's the symptoms picture of death, right? Gesisa has certain symptoms to it. It has certain signs of the imminent departure of the soul from the body. But in actual fact, different people die in very, very different ways. I mean, my husband's grandmother, my father-in-law is with us now, and he loves to tell over. He's like, she was such a tzaddikus, and she was 94, and she was sitting with some of the grandchildren, and she said, bring me a glass of water, and they brought her a glass of water, and she said, she made a bracha, shehakol niya bidvaro. She took a sip, and zehu. That was it. Closed her eyes, and she was gone.
Wow.
No, nothing. No tension in the body. No struggle for the breath. No noise. Okay, so we understand that physically people go in different ways, and spiritually, and we can't always make a correlation. By the way, we have to be careful, because not always is there a correlation between the spiritual process and the physical process. Nevertheless, the sages did speak about the fact that the easy transition out of the body is indicative of it being a smoother process on the spiritual plane. Now, we have no way of judging any of these things, but sometimes people are blessed for whatever reason, that at those last moments, there's no fear in the room. There's only the Shechina Kedosha coming to collect. There's no Malach HaMaves. There's only the Shechina Kedosha. And that's rare. In most cases, doesn't feel like that necessarily in the room where the person passes away. It's not necessarily like that. And so when you come in with your Shechina Kedosha following you, with your Shechina Kedosha, your aspect of the Shechina that's attached to your Tiferes, your Emes, and you walk in with the Shechina coming and accompanying you while you're alive and doing this mitzvah, you're bringing something to the nifter that you can't always necessarily assume was there manifest. So it is absolutely a kindness, the chesed shel emes, right? That your emes quality coming to do this last and so important chesed, it's such a lofty mitzvah, also because the person can't do it for himself. So let's see, because he's going to here explain a little bit more for us, okay? I hope I have to keep an eye also. I don't want to run over time. We have so much to talk about. Sod kvuras meisim hu nachas ruach neshama. The burial of the body of the dead is a deep, brings a deep satisfaction and to the soul. The whole zman de gufa lo nache is beduchte, all the while that the body has not been buried. Afrucha achiu, all the while that the body is not in the ground, the ruach is still there. Meaning it's still sort of hovering, it's still there. V'nikra chesed shel emes. Why is it called the chesed shel emes? Well, I sort of already told you, but he's going to break it down a little more clearly for us. Why is it called the kindness of truth? V'chein kol ma she'osim im hamesim. Everything that's done for the dead, meaning everything that you do as women who work with the Chevra Kadisha, and also everything that's done. Period. Like it's like. Literally, from the beginning to the end, ki adam b'chayav kavoi adam dahainu emes. Now, he's about to tell us a secret. Adam, human, and emes are related words. Why? Well, yesh ba'asor emes ma. Now, this is code language. Aleph, correct? Yes? Dalid, right? Dalit is a 4. So we have here 441. And what do we have here? It's 45, correct? But when you break it down, there's a way of doing gematrias that it's not 441. What is it? It's not 441. It's 4, right? It's 1. And then the 4 for the 40, the 4 for the 400, and the mem for the mem. Emes and Adam really wind up being the same word. The Dalid of Adam and the Taf for emet are equivalents because one of them is 4 and the other one is 400. Does everyone understand? It's like if you knocked off the zeros, you're still talking really essentially about the same number. So Adam is emet. It's the same word. V'yesh baso emet ma k'dichtiv b'tikunim. It says this in the very, very lofty work, the Tikkunei Zohar. V'emes hu yichud tiferes u'malchus. Really, what is emes? What is truth? Tiferet makes a unity with malchus. Now, here he's talking again, Kabbalah. What does he mean by that? Emes means Tiferes, the spiritual quality, which is very lofty. It makes a unity with Malchus, the 2 feet on the ground, this worldly existence. Like your spiritual part and your physical part, they come together. That's called Emes and Malchus. That's called Tiferes. And that's Dehainu, Aleph, can't really say. Tough men. Emes is Aleph and then Mes. Histalei kabina, Aleph, Me'emes. You take away the Aleph from the word Emes, what are you left with? Mes. You're left with the word Mes, which means the dead. And the Aleph is representative of what? That's the Aleph, is Alufo Shel Olam, is your godly, is the godly soul. That's called Aleph. Alufo Shel Olam means the lofty one of the universe. It's your piece of God that animates you. That's called your Aleph. So the Aleph is taken away. All that's left is the Mes, is the body. And it's the same thing, by the way, with Adam. Because if you take away the Aleph from Adam, what are you left with?
With down blood.
Blood. So whether it's Emes or whether it's Adam, it comes to the same thing. It's this unification of the spiritual component and the physicality, the raw physicality. So this is the Chesed Shel Emes, that you come in with your Adamness, your Emesness, right? Your unified self, which is body and soul, and you come to do the mitzvah. V'hainu, and when it's taken away, v'talema tiferes me'malchus, and the spiritual component is removed from the physicality. Hainu shias emes. That's what death is, and it's very interesting, because death is not. I remember when I was in college, I was doing pre-med stuff, and I remember like when you learn this, and you learn in high school too. You learn in high school too, because you have to learn when you're doing biology, when you college biology or high school, it doesn't make a difference. The first thing they teach you is that there's functions of life, right? So I remember when I was in school, first there were 7. Now they talk about 8 functions of life. Doesn't matter, right? They added evolution and adaptation. But either way, there's nutrition and there's locomotion and there's elimination and excretion and respiration, right? So we have all of these different functions of life. Now, if you were to check in your biology textbooks, so the definition of death is nothing more than what we would call the cessation of these functions, right? And there's no way to define what death is. I mean, I'm talking just from like open up a biology textbook. We don't have a definition, a positive definition of death. And that's true scientifically. All we have is a negative definition of death. That means as soon as these functions stop, then we say dead. That's it. But from the spiritual point, this actually fits very well with what we understand because life continues all the while that there is the Aleph. All the while that the Aleph is invested, there's life. And as soon as the Aleph is removed, then the manifestation, the fallout of that is that all other functions cease. But really the root is in the soul, where it is, whether it is still attached to the body or not. Dahainu. Now, what does the word mat mean? Because that also has to have a root. What does it mean? Dahainu mutzna umitalem. When something goes hidden. The Hebrew root memtaf is related to mate, which means when something is obscured or set aside or removed. Mutzna umitalem. Okay, now let's see. I'm going to move ahead a little bit. Here. V'hadam kishu chai mekayem hayichud, all the while that a person is alive, this unification of body and soul is ongoing. Kosher neshama be'abina, the soul which is rooted in bina, which I'm not going to go into, that's Kabbalistic. B'ruach me'atiferes. And it's bound up with the lower aspect of the soul, which is connected to the body, benefesh, me'malchut. They're all united together. U'mitaher haguf min hatumot. This is getting to the work that you do. all the while that the soul is in the body, all the while that the person is alive, the soul is such a powerful force that it helps to constantly purify the body from any achiza, from any hold that negative spiritual forces can have on the body itself. Meaning your soul, the soul of the nifter, the soul of the mace, is so powerful all the while. And it does not matter if the person is conscious or unconscious, if the person is functioning or non-functioning, all the while that life still exists within the body, while the soul is still attached to the body, it is like a kind of, it's like a laser. It's like a powerfully purifying light that just drives off all possible forces of impurity. But as soon as it's removed, then the body becomes this immediate receptacle, this immediate attraction point for what we call kochot hatumah, for negative spiritual. I call them like the free radicals of the spiritual world. It's like, these forces. It's so, when Corona started, I remember I called a Rav that we know for many, many years. And I asked him a question about something else. And he said to me, masks are good. So a Kabbalist who lives in Bnei Brak, he says, masks are good. Why? He says, first of all, you cover the nose, you cover the mouth. The Malach HaMavis has a harder time identifying people. That's what it says in Sefer Kabbalah from 700 years ago. So it's very good. 500 years ago, the Mekubalim said in the time of Magifa, in the time of epidemic, cover the nose and the mouth in public. Yes, that's it. Now you say that's good hygiene. How did they know? They didn't know there were germs. But they weren't talking about it from the perspective of germs. They were talking about it from a different perspective. Or maybe they also meant germs. And that's what he was saying. He said, like, the physicality of the body's susceptibility to decay. Well, think about it just physically, okay? All the while that the person is alive, the force of life within the body is in a constant state of cleansing of all of the tissues. And all waste and all decay is being held off and battled constantly through every living thing, through the force of life itself. And as soon as it's removed, what happens? Immediately decomposition. The instant that there's no life in the cells, as soon as the cells go into the state of death, it's immediate autolysis. They already start to digest themselves. They're already subject to infection. There's no more active self-protection. If that's true physically, it's only true physically because it's true spiritually. As soon as the soul is no longer attached to the body, it becomes subject to the kochot hatumah. And they parallel each other. They're not the same thing. They're analogs of each other. But it's a handy mashal for us. It's a very handy parable. Because the whole idea of the body suddenly becoming so susceptible to something, well, guess what? As soon as there's no vitality in any part of tissue of the body, let's say even if the person is alive, but for some reason there's been a block in the flow of vitality. I don't know what happened. Chas v'shalom, the circulation to the leg was interrupted for so long that the tissue has died. That person is that's it. It's like a piece of meat that's left out and that can rot immediately, even though it's still attached to the body, correct? So what do? We have to cut it off right away. It has to go. Why? Because just like, it's not that they are the same, they are different, but they are parallels of each other, analogs of each other, these processes. The body becomes susceptible to just being a physical thing. And just like any physical thing that doesn't have chayut in it, that doesn't have life force in it, it becomes exceedingly susceptible to a kind of decay. And this decay is also spoken about as a spiritual decay, as a spiritual negativity. And the sages called this the force of chitzonim, which call like the free radicals. What if a person cannot be washed due to a difficult death with a lot of blood? We're not up to the washing yet. Okay, we still have time. We're still in introductions. Be'ezrat Hashem, next time we're going to talk more about the washing. So, as soon as a person passes away, the soul is out of the body. So this unification, which was a constant cleansing force, that's what life is a constant cleansing, and that's the power of life. There are three qualities that become completely disassociated from each other, and that's what we call death. And the soul cannot ascend until the burial takes place. So what do we do until the burial? We take care of everything that the body requires until the burial, right? Meaning we're not allowed to be. I had a student who asked me about aninos. There are things that take place sometimes. It's so terrible. Someone asked me a while back. She said about. It's actually like so if someone is being, if a Jew is going to be cremated, chas v'shalom, if they're not coming to burial. So what happens to the shiva of the people what happens to the aninus of the people who are left behind? Are they onanim? Are they not onanim? Everyone knows what I mean by aninus. The interim period, there are halachot that you can't make brachot, you can't do mitzvot. The whole idea is that you can't do anything. If you're a first degree relative, you can't do anything except take care of tzorchei hames. You have to be involved with tzorchei hames. That's the whole idea of not having any obligation in any other mitzvah during that time, is because you're supposed to be taking care of the maze. And he says that's his tikkun. Because the soul is stuck. The soul is not able to really go anywhere until the burial. So what will happen? How are you going to be doing good things for this person's soul? All the while that they can't have relief because the body has not yet been buried. So as when you're working with the Cheva Kadisha, but also means the family, right? The Onanim. There are people in Animos. So they have to be busy with his needs. And that's called the tikkun of his neshama. That helps him. It's not only about getting him buried, getting her buried. As it says, Ki afar ata v'chulei, tahainu hakol haya min ha'afar. The preparation for the burial is like, we have to go back to ground. It's like, the term ground zero became so damaged, but it's really a very important term. It's like the ultimate of ultimate humility places to be, the most humbling of humbling places, the most rectifying of places that one can possibly be in, of the false pride of the self-willed human making all kinds of mistakes in life, right?
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
I'm sorry. When you say the tikkun of the person, did you mean the tikkun of the nifter whose neshama we're working on? Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, it means because it's not a blank time for them. It's a very important time for them. And every single person who is involved in some way in preparing them for the burial is being misak in their neshama. It's a very, very positive act for their soul, that there are people, the living, who are involved in doing a mitzvah on their behalf. It actually makes a very big impact on their soul, because right now they're sort of in between the death and the burial. They're stuck. They can't move. They cannot move forward. And so the period could be potentially very, very painful. It could be very, very traumatic to the soul. And all of the people who are involved in helping to prepare the body for burial are involved in tikkun haneshama, and it brings great soothing to the neshama to see, look at these people who are getting me ready to be buried so that I can move and I can go on. So it's like the power of the chesed is so wondrous, because the soul of the person is in a state of a kind of anxious anticipation for the burial. When will it finally happen? And every single movement that you make to help prepare their body to go into the ground is the soul feels such great relief. Soon I will be taken care of. Soon I will come to rest. Soon I will be free from the body. I'll be able to go away from here and I'll go to my source. So this is something that, like the abundance, I wanted to spend time on it, like to have an appreciation of the work that you do and what a deep chesed it is. Not stam because they can't pay you back. Right? It's not just because they can't give you recompense. It's every instant that you're helping them is they have incredible gratitude for the fact that someone is mitapel with them and helping them on their way. Kimin hafam. No, so let's talk a little bit about the earth. Now in America, you have earth from Eretz Yisrael that you put. Yes.
Yeah.
And you do according to the old way, you put in a bag, or you put on the eyes and
genitals and heart.
Yes. So we're going to talk about that later on. But just about the earth, it's very, very important. The earth of Eretz Yisrael is also, I'm sure everyone understands, because of Tchias HaMesim and so on, for the resurrection of the dead and to be connected to Eretz Yisrael, and to also it says that it helps with what's called Tsar, the Gilgul Mecholos, that the bodies that for the resurrection, that they'll come to Eretz Yisrael. It smooths the way for them, so it will be easier for them because they were not buried in Eretz Yisrael. But really, the earth is Yisod Ha'afar. When we talk about the element of the earth, it's really because we talk about there being in soul, and we'll say we'll call it spiritual constitution. In one spiritual constitution, so we all comprise 4 different what are called elements. And these are the 4 elements of earth and air and fire and water, but really they're not ordered that way. It's earth and then water. Earth is the lowest most. Earth and then water and then air and then fire. And when it's written down in this Sfarim, it's called Arma, which is called Eish Ruach Mayim Afar. That's how it's written. Aleph Reish Mem Ayin. If you ever see that acronym, that's what it is. Now, that's talking from the top down. Now I'm talking from the bottom up. Now, the whole basis, the whole basis of burial in the ground and why it's so important, because really what are you doing in the Chevra Kaddish is preparing the body for the burial. That's what it's about. Now, why is it necessary to be buried? We all know why. Because Adam and Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra. They ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And in the aftermath of that, they were told, you came from the earth. You're going to go back to the earth. Now, the idea of going back to the earth, the Ramchal explains that Adam and Chava's essential sin, meaning it's the root of all sins. Like everybody leaves this world with a peckle of stuff that they need to clean up, right? Nobody gets out entirely clean. So we have all this peckle of stuff that needs to be taken care of. And if we could say that if there's any single root to sin, because we always talk about having been this first sin that's like the sin of all sins, right? It's like the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra, eating from this tree. It's like the sin of all sins. But what was it really, this sin? Because if it's the sin of all sins, it means it's really like that's the sin. Everything else is just some kind of a fallout from that sin. So what is it? So the Ramchal explains what it is based on Chazal, that essentially what it is pride, is the assertion of self-will in defiance of God's will. That's what it is. Hashem said, don't eat from this tree. And we decided for whatever reason, whatever logic was motivating us to eat from this tree. And that's called the assertion of self-will in defiance of the divine will. And all other sins only come down to that. They're just various forms, right? That's what it means. To do an Avera is to assert self-will in defiance of the divine will. That's what it means to do a sin. So the Ramchal explains, that's why the earth is so important. Because we all need to be humbled. And there's nothing more humbling than burial. And the decomposition of the body in the ground is such a deeply humbling experience for the body, for the self-will, until it becomes as nothing. And we become completely humbled over the course of time. And the body becomes completely subsumed into nothingness. And mitbatel, it becomes completely as nothing. And then a person is ready for the tchiyah. And then we'll be ready to have bodies back and souls together with those bodies. And we'll be able to live again after we're fully, thoroughly humbled. So the whole process of burial is to go back to the afar, to go back into the earth, and you're preparing the mace for going back to this deeply humbling place where all of the fallout of all of the sins that they ever did in their life will fall away and become as nothing. And the soul will go through what it has to go through. It will be rewarded in all the ways that it needs to be rewarded, and it will go through whatever cleansing it has to go through, but the body it goes through this very, very deep humbling. And then and it prepares the body for the tchiyah. It prepares the body to become a perfected vehicle, a perfected vessel, so that the soul can re-enter into the body, and the body will be it will submit itself fully to the divine will, because our self-will at that point will be, yes. So Tammy asks, is that why we need full decomposition? Yes. And that's one of the reasons why the earth of Eretz Yisrael is so important. Because Chazal said that the earth of two countries are they quickly decompose the bodies. Eretz Yisrael's earth and Mitzrayim's earth, the earth of Egypt and the earth of Eretz Yisrael. And I'm not going to get into, the Maavar Yabok speaks a bit about how it could be that Egypt, which is like the antithesis of Eretz Yisrael in a certain way, how could that be that's also, but I will tell you that the best place, where is the best place to be buried in the whole world?
I'm gonna.
Hmm?
Throw.
Nope. The best place in the world? Har HaZeisim. Har HaZeisim, the original Jewish cemetery in Har HaZeisim. Now, what is Har HaZeisim? What is it made out of? It's
Stone.
limestone. It's limestone. The hills of Yerushalayim, surrounding Yerushalayim and of Yerushalayim itself is limestone. And lime is what dissolves the body. Lime dissolves organic matter. So Chazal taught us that the Har HaZeisim is such a powerful place. One of the reasons why is because Haniftarim, the people who are buried there, the Nikbarim, are quick to decompose. That means the tikkun comes faster. The rectification of the body comes quicker. So it's a school, it's special. But it's true also in a certain sense for Eretz Yisrael, for every place in Eretz Yisrael, but especially for Har HaZeisim. So when you're using the earth of Eretz Yisrael and you're placing it upon the eyes, we'll talk about later about the eyes and the Piyam Or and so on. So the reason why it's like those are the apertures where sin enters and sin needs to be cleansed. Those are apertures of vulnerability, of spiritual vulnerability. And so the earth of Eretz Yisrael is placed there specifically, right? Meaning like cleanse those places first. There's the apertures where damage takes place. You have to clean them out first. And it's such a chesed. Let's see, we have still a minute or two. Here. Okay, I think I sort of explained this about that far. Very important. Here, you see, Vikra Hasoda Zeba for Eretz Yisrael, Kibahu Sod Afar Davka. Earth everywhere is good. The earth in New York is good. The earth in Sydney is good. The earth in California is good. The earth, because earth is earth, right? The humbling quality of earth is good everywhere. But the earth of Eretz Yisrael has its own particular qualities. It says, anyone who's buried in Eretz Yisrael, Ki'ilu Kavua Tachas HaMizbeach. That's what it says in the Gemara Ksuvos, then. Anyone who's buried in Eretz Yisrael is as if they were buried beneath the altar, beneath the altar. What does that mean, beneath the altar? It means that the altar was the place where the animal sacrifices were brought. And so it just means that its power of kapara, its power of atonement is very strong. And so by bringing the earth of Eretz Yisrael to Los Angeles, Sydney, or Rhode Island, to New York or wherever you are, to have the earth of Eretz Yisrael, to where? Rhonda, where are you?
Toronto.
So to bring the earth of Eretz Yisrael, you do such a great chesed by bringing the kapara potential of Eretz Yisrael also. And even if you can't do it, what does it mean so what does it help to bring a little bit of earth? Does it help? Yeah, because like we are not, it's not symbolic. The Jews are not like, we don't do symbolic things. We do analogous things. We're very into analog, not symbol. So it's not symbolic. That's a bad word. It means that if you could, the assumption is like this. Why do you use a bag of earth from Eretz Yisrael? The assumption is anybody who could be in Eretz Yisrael, if you could be in Eretz Yisrael, would you be in Eretz Yisrael? If we could get this person buried on Har HaZeisim, would we do it? Is it only because there are forces beyond our control, mitigating factors that keep us from being in Eretz Yisrael, that we have to bury Jews in Chutz La'aretz? So all of that yearning and that desire to have the Kedusha, the holiness and the Kapara of Eretz Yisrael brought to the Nifter, brought to the mace, that's the power of making their Aron, making their place of burial Eretz Yisrael. That's how you do it. So when you lay the earth on them, the laying of the earth on them is a very, very important moment because you're bringing them the Kapara of Eretz Yisrael. And the way that you have the Kavanah in it is you say, Kvod HaNiftar, my precious Jew, if I could, I would be burying you in Eretz Yisrael. If we could, we would bury you in Eretz Yisrael. And there's nothing that I want more. And now that you're in Olam HaEmes, you also wanted nothing more than to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Here, I brought you a piece of Eretz Yisrael for you. I think we're going to stop for today. We have plenty to do. It's okay. But I think it's enough for today.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's really wonderful.
So we did the first 3 pages. We went through
Can I just ask you one question?
Sure.
Okay, back about a half an hour ago, you talked about if chas v'shalom somebody is cremated, and it's that period of time.
That's a question. That's a halachic question. I only brought it up because it's a question whether there's any aninus, right? Like there are those who say there's no aninus for someone who's being cremated because the whole point of aninus is to be preoccupied with the burial, and if the person is not going to... Right.
So I mean, are those? I mean that the nifter is in limbo the entire time.
Hashem Yirachem. Yeah, it's the fact that that there are so many Jews who have so lack of clarity about the importance of burial is tragic.
Yes,
really tragic. That's like my next project. I have, we had an old family burial society. No, we have an old family burial society in New York where there's like another 150 graves or something that are not earmarked for anybody. And that's like a project that I have to talk to my cousins about, taking over the administration of it so that people, Jews who would otherwise not choose Jewish burial because they're afraid of the costs and this, that we should be able to provide the graves more easily to people who would otherwise not ask for Kevi Yisrael, you know.
Can I actually ask a personal question as well related to that? Because
Sure.
it's bringing that up as well. I understand, Tova, Hinda, what you're saying, because my father-in-law, B'zichrono Lava, when he was nifter, we put all the names of his siblings. He was the only survivor of the Shoah. We
Right.
put their names on his kever. And now that you're saying, I'm almost like trembling because we don't know where they were buried. It bothered him his whole life. Is there some kind of maybe that he's buried in Toronto?
You know,
and
the what happened, like the story of what happened with all of our brothers and sisters who were sent to the crematoria. I think we're going to have to wait for Mashiach to come to explain to us what a very lofty tikkun it was that they had to go through this terrible, terrible bizayon, because as far as we can understand, it was such a terrible violation, and we're like yearning that how could they have not come to Kfuras Yisrael?
Right.
But I'm sure that in the fullness of time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make it clear to us that this was something that was absolutely the necessary thing that had to be for all these shamas. But I can't say that I have any kind of an answer about it.
All right, I'm going to let Yehudis go. Thank you, Yehudis. Really. We'll send a recording out, and we're going to meet amongst ourselves before we meet with you again.
Good.
And then we have a big meeting with like 100 people on May 23rd, but that's sort of like condensed down. But the inside group will meet.
But mamash hatzlacha with everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Olivia, what were you going to say?
I want to ask you a question. Are you teaching for Shariti this morning?
I am teaching at 9:15. I'm doing, I think, the first session for the Shavuos. I am doing like just on the Tehillim of Shavuos. I'm teaching about the Tehillim of Shavuos.
Okay, 9:15. Okay.
We have like we have three different teachers who are each doing half an hour for a little bit of an iyun prior to Shavuos.
9:15 is.
Just send the link.
Yeah, it'll be 11:15 a.m. I guess you're in California.
Have the link.
Let's let her go. Thank you so much.
Did you send the link to the people on the Shviti email list for that?
I think it went out. I honestly think that it did go out. But if you can share it amongst yourselves, that would be good.
All right, ladies.
Thank you so
All right.
much for
Thank you so
having me.
much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you so much. Take care.
Have a beautiful Shabbos, a wonderful Yom Tov.
Amen. And you too. Be
Stay
well.
safe.